They told you that you were broken. They handed you that story like a life sentence. And somewhere along the way, you believed them. You wore that brokenness like a crown of thorns, carried it into every room, every relationship, every silent night where you stared at the ceiling, wondering why your life felt like a cage with no visible bars. But here is the cold, unforgiving truth that no one had the spine to tell you. You were never broken. You were asleep. There is a savage difference between a man who is destroyed and a man who simply has not yet been forged. Destroyed men stay down. Unforged men haven't felt the fire yet. And right now, in this moment, the fire has found you. Machiavelli did not write for the comfortable. He wrote for men who understood that the world is not a fair court, it is a battlefield dressed in silk, and the ones who rule it are not the kindest, not the most educated, not the most loved. They are the ones who woke up, who stopped bleeding publicly, who looked at their suffering and said, "This is not my grave, this is my ground." You have been walking through life reacting, flinching, shrinking, waiting for someone to rescue you from a war that only you can finish. Nobody is coming. That is not cruelty, that is liberation. Because the moment you stop waiting for rescue is the moment your power begins to resurrect. This monologue is not motivation. Motivation is temporary. This is architecture. We are going to build something inside you that cannot be taken, cannot be negotiated away, and cannot be broken by any man, woman, or circumstance that has ever made you feel small. 7 laws, 7 shifts, 1 transformation. Are you ready to stop sleeping? Law 1. Master your darkness before it masters you. Every man walking this earth carries a darkness inside him, a rage he swallows at dinner tables, a hunger he buries under forced smiles, a ruthlessness he was taught to be ashamed of since the day he was old enough to feel it. And that shame, that carefully installed, socially engineered shame, is the first chain they put on you. Because a man who is afraid of his own darkness will always be controlled by someone who isn't afraid of theirs. This is the first law, not the law they teach in churches or classrooms. This is Machiavelli's unspoken law, the one written between the lines of every chapter he ever put to paper. Know what lives inside you, not to unleash it blindly, not to become a beast with no direction, but to command it, to look that darkness in the eye and say, "I own you, you do not own me." Dark psychology is not evil, it is knowledge. And knowledge wielded by a disciplined man becomes the most dangerous weapon in any room. The men who have destroyed you, manipulated you, walked over you, they were not stronger. They simply knew their darkness and used it while you were busy apologizing for yours. Stop apologizing. Your anger is information. Your obsession is fuel. Your cold, calculating mind that you were told made you difficult. That is your throne, not your flaw. The first step in becoming untouchable is radical self-honesty. Strip away every comfortable lie you've told yourself. Look at your weakness, your envy, your hunger without flinching. Because a king does not fear the dungeon beneath his castle, he controls everything that lives in it. Master your darkness, or watch it hand your power to someone else. Law 2. Silence is the sharpest sword. Most men are addicted to being heard. They talk to fill space. They explain themselves to people who never asked for an explanation. They defend their decisions to people who have already made up their minds. They argue, justify, announce, and broadcast, and in doing so, they hand every opponent a detailed map of their mind. This is not communication. This is surrender dressed as confidence. The second law is silence, and not the silence of a weak man who has nothing to say. The silence of a predator who has everything to say and chooses not to. There is a reason the most powerful men in history were described as unreadable. Unreadable men cannot be manipulated. You cannot pick the lock of a door you cannot find. When you speak less, people begin to fill your silence with their own projections, their own fears, their own assumptions, and those assumptions will almost always place you at a higher level than you even occupy. Silence manufactures mystery. Mystery manufactures power. Machiavelli understood that the prince who reveals his thoughts openly invites conspiracy. Every word you speak unnecessarily is a brick removed from your fortress wall. Watch what happens when you stop over-explaining yourself. Watch how the energy in a room shifts when you respond with stillness instead of reaction. People will become uncomfortable. Good. Discomfort means they can no longer read you, no longer predict you, no longer feel safe underestimating you. Train yourself to pause before you speak. Train yourself to listen with the cold, surgical patience of a man who is collecting data, not conversation. Your silence will confuse your enemies, intrigue your allies, and terrify anyone who has grown accustomed to controlling you through noise. Say less, mean more. Become the kind of man whose silence alone commands a room. Law 3. Never reveal your next move. The moment you announce your plans, you arm your enemies. This is not paranoia. This is the oldest strategic truth, written in the blood of every man who ever lost a war he should have won. You have been conditioned to share, to be transparent, to post your goals, declare your ambitions, and invite the world into your blueprint as if the world is cheering for you. It is not. For every person who genuinely wants to see you rise, there are 3 who will quietly, unconsciously, sometimes even lovingly, sabotage your ascent. Not always out of malice, sometimes out of their own fear, their own smallness, their own inability to watch someone near them outgrow the cage they themselves are still trapped in. This is why the 3rd law is non-negotiation. Never reveal your next move. Let your actions announce themselves through results, not previews. A lion does not inform the prey of its direction. It moves, it strikes, it feeds, and only then does the world understand what just happened. Machiavelli warned that men who speak of their intentions give their rivals the gift of preparation. When your next move is invisible, you remain uncontested. When your strategy lives only inside your mind, no one can dismantle it, delay it, or steal it before it breathes. This is why you must learn to become comfortable with being misunderstood in the short term. Let them think you are idle. Let them believe you have no direction. Let their assumption of your stagnation become the very ground you build your empire on while they are not watching. Execute in silence. Celebrate in private. Then emerge transformed, and let the results speak in a voice so loud that no explanation is ever required. Unpredictability is not chaos. It is your greatest strategic armor. Law 4. Pain is your blueprint, not your excuse. Every scar on your soul is a map. Every betrayal, every failure, every night you hit the floor so hard you weren't sure you'd have the will to stand again. None of it was random. None of it was punishment. All of it was construction. But most men never discover this because they spend their entire lives doing one of 2 things with their pain. They either drown in it publicly, bleeding on everyone around them and calling it honesty, or they bury it so deep that it calcifies into bitterness and quietly poisons every decision they make for the rest of their lives. Both paths lead to the same destination: powerlessness. The 4th law demands something harder than either of those routes. It demands that you look at everything that has ever broken you and ask one cold, ruthless question: what did this build in me? Because pain without extraction is just suffering. But pain interrogated, studied and weaponized becomes the kind of wisdom that cannot be purchased, cannot be taught in any school, and cannot be replicated by any man who has lived a life of comfort. Machiavelli did not romanticize suffering. He respected it as the greatest instructor a prince could ever have. The men who have been through fire and chose to learn from it rather than be destroyed by it carry a quality in their eyes that comfortable men will never possess. It is the quality of certainty, of unshakable groundedness, of a man who knows that if the worst has already come and he is still standing, then there is nothing left in this world with the power to finish him. Your past did not break you. It drafted the blueprint of the king you are becoming. Stop mourning the construction process. Start reading the plans. Law 5. Build power quietly, strike loudly. Ambition worn publicly is ambition made vulnerable. The moment you parade your climb, you invite resistance from every man who feels threatened by your ascent, and every system designed to keep you exactly where you started. The fifth law is the law of the silent architect. You build in the dark, you move without announcement, you accumulate without display, and when the moment of decisive action finally arrives, you strike with a force so concentrated, so precisely timed, that the world has no choice but to witness what has been constructed in the quiet. This is not hiding. This is strategy. There is a fundamental difference between a man who is invisible because he is irrelevant and a man who is invisible because he is dangerous. You are building toward the second. Study how water operates. It does not announce its erosion. It does not declare its intention to carve through stone. It simply moves, consistently, patiently, with absolute commitment to its direction, until one day the stone is gone and the water remains. That is the energy of a man who understands the fifth law. While others are performing progress, you are producing it. While others are networking loudly in rooms full of the wrong people, you are sharpening your skill, stacking your resources, fortifying your mind, and removing every weakness that could be exploited when you finally step into the arena. Machiavelli was clear. The prince who conserves his strength and chooses his moment with precision will always outlast the man who burns his energy on spectacle. Patience is not passivity. It is the most aggressive long-term strategy available to you. So go quiet, go deep, go to work in the silence where no one is watching and nothing is guaranteed. Then when you are ready, and you will know when you are ready, emerge and strike like it was never in question. Law 6. Control the narrative or it controls you. You are being described right now. In rooms you have never entered, by mouths you have never silenced, in conversations you were never invited to, a version of you is being constructed by people who may not even know you fully. And if you have never thought about that, if you have simply trusted that the truth of who you are will somehow speak for itself, then you have already surrendered one of the most critical battlefields a man can ever lose, the battlefield of perception. Because in the real world, in the world that Machiavelli mapped with ruthless precision, it does not matter only what you are, it matters enormously what people believe you are. Perception is not vanity. Perception is power. The sixth law commands you to take absolute ownership of the story being told about you, not through deception, not through performance, but through deliberate, calculated intentionality in how you carry yourself, what you associate with, what you refuse to tolerate publicly, and what image you project into every room you enter. Kings throughout history did not leave their reputation to chance. They sculpted it the way a general fortifies a city, with walls thick enough to absorb attack and gates narrow enough to control entry. You must decide the narrative before someone else decides it for you. This means you do not allow disrespect to go unanswered. You do not permit your name to be cheapened by association with smallness. You do not laugh along when the joke is at the expense of your dignity. Every time you fail to defend your narrative, you hand the pen to someone less qualified to write your story. Control how you are seen. Control how you are spoken about. Control the energy you bring into spaces and the standards you enforce within them. The man who owns his narrative owns the room. The man who owns the room is already halfway to owning everything else. Law 7. Loyalty to self above all else. There is a particular kind of destruction that leaves no visible marks, no bruises, no scars that other people can see. It happens slowly, quietly, across years of small surrenders that each felt reasonable in the moment. The dream you shelved because someone you loved seemed uncomfortable with your ambition. The standard you lowered because holding it made someone else feel inadequate. The version of yourself you compressed, edited and dimmed because the people around you had silently decided what size you were allowed to be, and you did not yet have the courage to disagree. You called it compromise. You called it maturity. You called it love. But stripped of every emotional justification you wrapped around it, what it actually was self-betrayal, and no man who has made a habit of betraying himself has ever built anything worth living inside. The 7th law is the law that every other law has been building toward. It is the coldest, the most misunderstood, and the most transformative principle in this entire monologue: loyalty to self above all else. Not the shallow, performative selfishness of a man who has confused self-interest with self-awareness. Not cruelty disguised as independence or isolation dressed as strength, but the deep, unshakable, non-negotiable commitment to your own truth, your own vision, your own evolution, even when it costs you comfort, even when it costs you relationships, even when it costs you the approval of every person whose opinion you have spent years trying to earn. Machiavelli stated it without softness: the prince who abandons his own judgment to satisfy the expectations of others will find himself with neither the respect of those he served nor the throne he sacrificed himself to maintain. People-pleasing is not diplomacy. It is not kindness. It is fear wearing the costume of virtue, and it will hollow you out more completely than any external enemy ever could. Because every time you override your instinct to appease someone else's comfort, you send a message to the deepest part of yourself. A message that says your truth is negotiable, your boundaries are decorative, and your needs are less important than the feelings of whoever is standing in front of you at that moment. Hear that message enough times, and you will begin to believe it. And a man who believes his own needs are secondary to everyone else's has already built his prison and locked himself inside it voluntarily. Choose yourself, not occasionally, not when it is convenient, not after you have exhausted every other option. First. Always. With the same fierce, unconditional loyalty you have wasted on people and systems that never fully deserved it. Guard your energy with the seriousness of a man who understands that it is his most finite and most powerful resource. Remove without guilt every relationship, habit, and environment that consistently drains more than it builds. Build your standards so high and hold them so firmly that only what is truly worthy of your time, your trust, and your presence can ever get close enough to matter. This is not arrogance. This is architecture. And now that you carry all 7 laws inside you, now that the broken man has been dismantled and the king has taken his place, there is one final command. Drop a comment below with this phrase: "I am the architect of my own empire," and mean every single word of it as a contract you are making with the most powerful version of yourself. If these 7 laws reached something real inside you, hit that like button without hesitation. Subscribe to this channel, because what was built here today is only the foundation, and there is an entire empire of knowledge still coming for men who are serious about their ascent. Turn on notifications, because a king never misses intelligence that could sharpen his edge. The broken man is dead. The king has arrived. Now act like it.